Donald Trump has barely been in the Oval Office 2 days, and already some of his foreign policies are causing controversy. President Trump's plan to take back the Panama Canal, an important US trade route which has been in Panama's full control since 1999, is one of those. Trump is claiming that Panama has broken a promise to remain neutral, alleging that China is operating the canal. But why is the Panama Canal so important to the US? And could President Trump use military force to take it back? Here to discuss this further is shipping expert Dr. Sal Mercogliano. To start off here, the Panama Canal opened in 1914, built mostly by the United States. Why is it so important for international trade and for the US?
Well, if you look at the totals going through the Panama Canal today, we're looking at about 500 million tons of cargo go through on an annual basis. Compare that to annual shipping around the world of about 12 billion tons. It represents a substantial portion, and over half of that is goods coming to and from the United States. So it is a vital choke point. We saw recently with the reduction in water in the Panama Canal, how that impacts the United States. So it has been at the forefront of American trade policy since its creation.
And it was an incredibly ambitious project when it was initiated back in the early 20th century. But what did it allow shipping to do that it previously couldn't?
The key thing was it was a shortcut. It allowed shipping to avoid the very long passage around South America. You're talking about saving thousands of miles. During the Spanish-American War, a U.S. battleship, the Oregon, had to sail all the way around to be able to participate in the battles off of Cuba. And it was Ferdinand de Lesseps, actually the founder of the Suez Canal, who attempted the first construction of the canal in the 1870s, but he failed. It was the United States in 1904 kicking it back and able to construct that canal in just 10 years.
But then President Carter agreed to hand it over to Panama, I think in 1977, and then it was eventually handed over just before the millennium. Why did the US do that, and is it still a sore spot?
The canal was given to the United States in perpetuity by Panama in the 1904 treaty. We paid Panama an annual fee, which was upped from about $250,000 to a few $1,000,000 over a series of treaties. But in 1977, President Carter realized that during the midst of the Cold War, there was concern that Panama may take a bad view of the United States controlling this canal, and the Soviets could foster issues. So the decision was made to go ahead and hand kind of in a phased transfer of the canal over in 1999. However, there is a provision in the treaty, which President Trump is citing, that if Panama is not abiding by the neutrality of the canal, in other words, treating all countries fairly, particularly the United States, that the U.S. reserves the right to intervene in the operation of the canal.
I want to come back to China in a second, but first of all, why do you think President Trump is spending so much time talking about this?
Well, I think we're seeing a renaissance in shipping here in the United States. A lot of maritime issues have come to the forefront, whether it was the global supply chain crisis in 2021, whether it was the Ever Given getting stuck in the Suez. We have just seen a myriad of issues that really is involving U.S. trade. And I think the Panama Canal plays an inordinate role in U.S. shipping. A lot of U.S. energy, a lot of U.S. grain and ore go through the Panama Canal heading over to Asia. And we're seeing right now what happens when a canal can be interdicted by the Houthi in the Red Sea, where about 40% of Suez Canal trade have been interdicted over the past year.
And then we come to this issue of neutrality. Trump says that there is a question about the Panama Canal's neutrality and that the involvement of China is something that's posing a risk to that neutrality. What do you say to that?
Well, I mean, we're seeing China's involvement in ports in Panama, much like we're seeing around the world. China has an interest in ports on both ends of the Panama Canal. They operate major container terminals there, but there are also container terminals operated by companies out of Taiwan and Singapore, for example. So there is a Chinese presence. I think one of the big concerns that President Trump has was a recent decision by Panama to recognize China, end their kind of ties with Taiwan. The decision decision of Panama to buy into the Belt and Road Initiative, a massive copper mining operation that's being undertaken by the Chinese, a massive infrastructure program being financed through the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative that's building trains and also a fourth bridge over the Panama Canal. So I think there is a concern that China is having a much larger influence in Panama than the United States traditionally had. And again, that's really a U.S. decision. We've backed away in many ways from our involvement in many countries, including the operation of the Panama Canal.
Look, before I let you go, one final question. Will this happen? Will the United States take back the Panama Canal?
I think the taking back of the Panama Canal is not going to happen. That is a very kind of large issue right there. I do think, but it does raise issues. I would not be surprised to see a renewed involvement or agreement between the United States and Panama in security arrangements and concerns about this. Obviously, the Panama Canal is vital for U.S. trade. A lot of commodities flow through there, so it's going to involve the agricultural and energy sectors. If the U.S. wants to see, further exports and really control more of its trade, obviously having a greater involvement with Panama, I think this can be done very diplomatically. I think this is the issue, and maybe that's the call here by President Trump to open up these discussions between the United States and Panama.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Dr. Sal Macogliano, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.